Hello everyone. Welcome to my YNR 24 spoilers. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Sienna's problems, Sharon's Jeopardy, and Noah's memory. Spoilers for Thursday, November 6th, 2025's episode of The Young and the Restless are available. Fans should anticipate that Noah Newman will discuss his life after Genoa City in the upcoming episode. There is danger for Sharon Newman. Sienna Bacall also has issues with the cops. Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. The Punch of Nick Newman. First, let's talk about Matt Clark, also known as Mitch Bacall. Nick Newman was in the shadow room as Sharon remained with Noah as he emerged from his coma. Nick abruptly struck his opponent in the face after hearing Matt/Mitch and Sienna argue. Even when Matt/Mitch did fall, he will probably get back up and assault Nick. Naturally, Matt/Mitch will maintain that a case of mistaken identity exists. Sharon and Nick don't think so. Sharon claimed that she saw it was definitely Matt when she stared directly into Mitch's eyes. Read more. Discover the events of YNR's most recent episode. Jeopardy with Sharon Newman. Matt/Mitch and Sienna are becoming irritated due to Nick and Sharon's constant questioning, but for different reasons. Regarding why she called Noah the night of the accident, Sienna blatantly misled Detective Burrow. Additionally, it was interesting that Noah would only be in that area of town to visit Sienna, since Matt and Mitch were out of town. Then, when Nick punched Sharon, things might become dangerous. Instead of Nick, Matt/Mitch might vent his rage on Sharon. The memory of Noah Newman. According to Thursday, November 6th spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Noah awoke from his coma without even knowing which city he was in. The physician assured him that his memories would eventually return. I wonder, though, whether he does recall and simply refuses to acknowledge his involvement. Read this. Lucas Adams of Young and the Restless promises significant character shifts for Noah. November 6th, 2025, Thursday. Kyle Abbott will receive some assistance. Diane Jenkins Abbott and Jack Abbott will both provide for their son. Jack and Diane may also be concerned that Kyle will just drive Claire Grace Newman away, this time permanently. She won't be thanking Holden Novak for keeping her safe. But Kyle wants to show that he is a nasty guy. Stay tuned, because Claire will think it goes too far, especially because Holden has already told the blonde his version of events. Nick and Matt battle it out, and Sienna has something to conceal from the police. According to Wednesday, November 5th spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Nick Newman and Matt Clark, also known as Mitch Bacall, confront one another while Sienna Bacall struggles with a police cover-up in Los Angeles. Nick needs to locate Matt from the shadow room before receiving an update from Sharon Newman regarding Noah Newman's coma waking. Sienna may not have time to assist Mitch because she is hiding from the police at the same time. Sienna is in a difficult position since she needs to keep herself and the nightclub safe while also avoiding her relationship with Noah. Matt Clark versus Nick. Nick, meantime, gets ready to face a former villain. Nick believes Sharon when she says Mitch is Matt, but he has to see the man in person. When Nick first meets Mitch, what does he see? He thinks he's staring at Matt. However, the man disputes Nick's claims and tensions rise. Nick starts to ask questions and make threats since he is positive he is staring at his former enemy. Nick is certain he sees Matt. In another scene, Victoria Newman has some time to reflect on her nephew Noah's accident and feels uneasy since she senses something is wrong with this whole situation. Will Victoria be shocked to discover that Matt Clark is still alive and may have been involved in the disaster after questioning Sharon for additional information? Nick eventually returns to the hospital to be with Sharon and Noah. The worried father is overjoyed that Noah is awake and conscious. A thrilling revelation for the... According to teasers for The Young and the Restless, Sharon and Nick are eager for the moment when the doctor finally says it's okay to take off Noah's bandages. Do you recall Matt Clark from the times he intimidated Sharon? Tell us, YNR fans. Matt Clark was an antagonist that destroyed Schick's life when they were considerably younger. How plausible is it that he has returned and is purportedly involved in Noah's injuries? The burden of forgotten truths in Noah's memory. Noah Newman felt as though he was observing his own life from a distance when he opened his eyes in the sterile brightness of Genoa City Memorial Hospital. The faint smell of antiseptic, the hushed conversation of nurses, and the buzz of equipment all blended into a mist that hardly covered up the stabbing pain in his chest. Even though he had been in a coma for weeks, his awakening brought bewilderment, shadows, and a dreadful void where his memories should have been. Sharon Newman, his mother, sat next to him, her eyes full of optimism but swollen from restless nights. She held onto his hand as if she might force his life to return to its proper pace. With a shaky voice, she added, "You're safe, sweetheart." "You're home," Noah said, but his eyes strayed from her to the window where daylight streamed in. At home. It was an unfamiliar word. Noah did not remember what home actually meant, despite Sharon's assurances. The physicians explained that memory loss was typical following trauma, and that it was the brain's defense mechanism as they assessed his vital signs. However, Sharon's keen intuition told her that this was more than a passing mist. She could tell Noah wasn't only lost because of a glimmer of fear, guilt, or even rebellion in his eyes. He was concealed. She was still unsure if it came from him or the truth. Rumors of the collision that almost killed Noah persisted throughout the hallways. While some speculated that it was a setup, others claimed it was an accident. Sienna Bacall was the only name that was always there in those low voices. When Detective Burrow questioned her about the call she had made to Noah the night of the collision, she insisted it was a harmless exchange. Sharon wasn't persuaded. Mothers can see when things doesn't match up, and Sharon had discovered the hard way that falsehoods are frequently a part of love. Later that day, bits of memory started to emerge as Noah wavered between awareness and half-dreams. He heard tires screeching, saw flashes of spotlights, heard Sienna's anxious cry, and then heard nothing. It stung more the more he attempted to remember. Sharon's mother instincts informed her that time was running out, even though the doctor advised her not to push him. Someone wanted Noah to remain silent, and danger would follow the return of his memories. A deeper reality simmered behind his uncertainty. At least some of it was recalled by Noah. However, the reality was sinister, perilous, and connected to individuals his family could never hope to trust once more. He could start a series of events that would ruin everyone he loved, including himself if he spoke. Thus, for the time being, Noah preferred the falsehood of amnesia to the burden of his secret. Sharon's Jeopardy, the return of the ghosts of the past. Sharon Newman battled her own living nightmare while Noah battled his inner demons. She associated trauma with the name Matt Clark. He was the one who broke her innocence decades ago and almost ended her and Nick's youthful romance. She had thought that his passing was a final chapter. So far, Sharon felt a chill go down her spine as Nick Newman came back from the shadow room with blood on his knuckles and anger in his eyes. "It's him," Nick declared, his voice trembling with conviction. "Matt Clark is still alive." "I saw it, Sharon, but he goes by Mitch Bacall." Sharon gasped. I looked him in the eyes. Logic told her it was impossible, but her emotions recalled those eyes too vividly. The sneer that assured her he would always prevail, the coldness, and the need for dominance. Sharon and her family were once again in Matt's sights if he had actually survived. The cryptic texts, Noah's crash, and Sienna's terrified tone whenever she brought up Mitch were all too well explained. Sharon was aware of Matt's potential. He was systematic in addition to being dangerous. He had a plan, and it most likely involved retaliation, if he had managed to adopt a new persona. Sharon pleaded with Nick to use caution as he stormed out, determined to face the man. She was aware that Matt enjoyed provocation. He wanted Nick to be irate, careless, and preoccupied. She begged, "Please don't let him drag you back into his game." However, Nick's love for his family was just as fierce as his pride. He clenched his jaw and declared, I'm ending this once and for all if he's behind what happened to Noah. Sharon felt the heavy burden of history bearing down on her as she sat at Noah's bedside by herself later that night. She was reminded of her younger self, who was scared and exploited by Matt. Once she had made it through, but now her son was in danger. She discovered too late that her family was at risk due to her unwillingness to face her history. Sharon heard footsteps behind her as the shadows in Noah's hospital room became longer. Half expecting Nick, she turned. However, it wasn't him. A man with a sharp suit and a slight smirk stood in the doorway. "Mrs., you've been asking a lot of questions, Newman," he remarked casually. The blood drained from Sharon's cheeks. "Perhaps it's time for us to talk." She would recognize that voice anywhere, calm, endearing with a hint of venom. Whatever name he was going by now, Matt Clark was come to complete the task he had begun. The following seconds were a flurry of pandemonium, with alarms going off and nurses racing in. Matt disappeared as fast as he had appeared. But it was obvious that Sharon was in danger. She was in mortal danger, not just emotional. Her family was the target of the resurrected misdeeds from her past. Lies, loyalty, and the law. Sienna's problem. Sienna Bacall was caught in a tightening web of lies while Nick pursued his old foe and Sharon battled to defend her son. Sienna, a former self-assured businesswoman and nightclub owner in Los Angeles, had always flourished in the gray areas, taking advantage of circumstances. But now that Mitch's secrets were coming to light and the cops were circling, she knew she had gone too far. She had previously been questioned twice by Detective Burrow. Sienna's responses were more prepared and polished each time. She said that the only reason she had phoned Noah that evening was because she was concerned about his emotional condition. She said to the detective, her voice quivering just enough to sound genuine, "He was like a brother to me." However, Sienna knew in her heart that the lie wouldn't last. There had been more between her and Noah, a perilous bond based on desperation and shared secrets. It had started out as a business relationship between Sienna and Mitch, or Matt, as she now called him. He had assisted her in finding investors for the Shadow Room, her club. However, his influence became more sinister with time. He was aware of details about her that she couldn't afford anyone else to know, such as previous transactions, fabricated documents, and a deadly night that she had kept hidden for years. She didn't question his request to watch Noah Newman. She simply did what she was told. Now that Noah's tragedy was in the news and she was breathing heavily, Sienna came to the conclusion that she was disposable. The moment it suited him, Mitch would ignore her. She had already witnessed his outburst and the way his charm disappeared when he felt trapped. Additionally, Nick's blow in the Shadow Room had ignited him like gasoline. He had growled, "They'll regret ever crossing me," and Sienna knew he meant it. She had other issues besides the police. There were rumors circulating within her own nightclub. Her staff had witnessed the detectives' arrivals and departures. Her business associates were withdrawing. And Noah, the one man she believed could be of use, was laying in a hospital bed with a broken mind. For the first time, Sienna had no way out of her disintegrating empire. She went back to the Shadow Room, her workspace late at night. Fear and sour whiskey pervaded the air. There was an envelope with no name and no return address on her desk. One picture showed her standing over a destroyed automobile on the night of Noah's accident was found inside. There was a red-inked note beneath it that read, "Confess, or you'll wish you had." Sienna shuddered as she realized the walls were getting closer. Now, the police were the least of her concerns. Mitch had betrayed her. She was the next person he cleaned the house. Her only chance might be to betray him, something she had vowed never to do. However, she would have to side with the very individuals she had tricked in order to accomplish it. Nick against Matt, the conflict between the past and the present. Nick got into a heated argument with either Matt or Mitch. That one blow at the Shadow Room unleashed years of bitterness, fury, and suppressed guilt. For Nick, closure was more important than just Noah's accident, his marriage, his youth. and now his family's tranquility had all been plagued by Matt Clark. Nick desired either justice or retribution, depending on which came first. Ever the manipulator, Matt refrained from taking violent revenge. "You haven't changed, Nick," he remarked with a smile that was leaking blood from his lip. The words wounded more deeply than any blow. Still the hero, still the fool. Matt knew precisely which buttons to push in his psychological game. Nick battled at home between finding the truth and keeping Sharon safe. He wanted to think that Mitch was a fake, that fate wasn't terrible enough to bring an old evil back to life. However, all of his instincts told him otherwise. Sienna's evasiveness, Noah's hazy memories, and Sharon's fear all suggested that Matt Clark had come back and wasn't done with them. Connected fates. The threads of these three stories, Noah's recollection, Sharon's peril, and Sienna's problems, started to converge as the show approached its cliffhanger. Sienna's remorse clashed with Sharon's anxiety for her son, while Noah's disjointed memories started to piece together a vision too horrible to speak. Nick's quest for vengeance put him squarely in Matt's path. He had been with Sienna the night of the crash, and Matt had been pursuing them. Noah was struck like lightning by the realization. He had not been a helpless victim. He was used as bait. He had been used by Sienna to entice Matt out, but she was unaware that Matt had already reversed the trap. The collision had been a warning more than an accident. Sharon received a terrifying phone call as Thursday's episode came to an end. A garbled voice whispered, "You should have left the past buried." The call ended abruptly, leaving Sharon shaking. Tears were streaming down Sienna's cheeks as she packed a bag in a different part of town. And before the monitors started beeping madly, Noah finally mumbled a name in his hospital bed. Matt. In conclusion, the price of secrets. The cyclical nature of sin, atonement, and retribution is what makes the young and the restless so successful. The ghosts of the past have returned home to roost in this plot. More than just a plot device, Noah's lost memories represent how effortlessly the instability of one generation is passed down to the next. In addition to facing a reborn monster, Sharon must deal with her own guilt for never really escaping him, putting her in both bodily and emotional danger. Viewers are also reminded by Sienna's problems that people who dance with devils seldom escape unscathed. One thing is apparent as Genoa City prepares for the upcoming episode. The conflict between truth and deceit is far from ended. Every decision made, every memory recovered, and every secret revealed will pave the way for a reckoning that could permanently alter the Newman legacy. Make sure to stay up to date on everything that is currently going on with the young and the restless. Return frequently for the most recent YNR news, spoilers, and updates. Settle in and receive access to the best soap opera information available online.